What if the very things we spend our lives trying to avoid are the only things that can truly move us forward? It's a strange question, but think about it. We are all on a path, heading somewhere we hope is better than where we are now. A better career, a healthier body, a more peaceful mind, a stronger relationship. But inevitably, something stands in the way. An obstacle. It might be a difficult boss, a sudden illness, a financial crisis, or simply the crushing weight of our own self-doubt. And in that moment, when the path is blocked, what do we do? For most of us, the feeling is one of profound frustration. We feel stuck, wronged, unlucky. We see the obstacle as an unfortunate deviation from our plan, an injustice that has derailed our progress. We complain, we despair, we try to go around it, or we simply give up and turn back, convinced that the universe is conspiring against us. This experience is so deeply, painfully human that it binds us all. Why is it that some people, when faced with the exact same kind of roadblock, don't just endure it, but seem to draw a strange and powerful energy from it? They don't just get past the obstacle. They are transformed by it, emerging stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. It's as if they know a secret that the rest of us don't. This isn't a new question. For millennia, philosophers and emperors, poets and prisoners have wrestled with this fundamental dynamic of the human condition. One person who became singularly obsessed with this question, not as an academic puzzle but as a matter of survival, is the author Ryan Holiday. He saw this pattern repeating throughout history, a hidden formula for turning struggle into strength, and he embarked on a journey to decode it. He didn't invent a new idea, but rediscovered an ancient one, a timeless operating system for navigating the difficulties of life. What you and I are about to embark on is a journey into that discovery, to uncover profound logic behind one of life's greatest paradoxes, that the way forward is not around the obstacle, but directly through it. To truly understand the power of this idea, you first have to understand the world from which it was forged. For Ryan Holiday, this wasn't philosophy he discovered in the serene, quiet halls of a university library. It was a lifeline he grabbed for in the middle of a raging storm. Imagine being barely out of your teens, a college dropout who has somehow clawed his way into the inner circle of one of the most brilliant, chaotic, and controversial companies of its time, American Apparel. Holiday became the director of marketing, a right-hand man to its founder, Dov Charney. This wasn't a normal corporate job. It was a daily baptism by fire. The company was a lightning rod for controversy, constantly embroiled in scandalous lawsuits, public relations nightmares, and brutal corporate warfare. One day, the challenge would be a multi-million-dollar sexual harassment suit splashed across every major news outlet. The next, it would be a vicious battle with Wall Street hedge funds trying to seize control of the company. The pressure was immense, relentless, and utterly unforgiving. For a young man in his early 20s, this environment should have been a breaking point. Most people would have crumbled under the sheer weight of the constant crisis. Every single day presented a new, seemingly insurmountable obstacle. There was no playbook for this. There was no business school case study on how to handle the sheer, unpredictable chaos that defined his daily existence. He was living in a world where the plan was obsolete the moment it was made, where the path forward was perpetually blocked by a new, more terrifying problem. It was in the crucible of this intense pressure that his search began. He wasn't looking for a feel-good mantra or a quick business hack. He needed something more fundamental. He needed a weapon, a shield, an internal operating system that wouldn't crash no matter how chaotic the external world became. This was a before state, a life of constant reactive firefighting, where every obstacle was a source of stress, anxiety, and potential ruin. The stakes couldn't have been higher, not just for company survival, but for his own sanity. And so he dove into the classics, not for intellectual curiosity, but with the desperation of a drowning man searching for a raft. He read voraciously, hunting for an answer to the question that haunted him. How did the great figures of history handle the impossible? How did they keep their heads when everyone else was losing theirs? He wasn't just reading. He was excavating. His first major breakthrough came not from a modern business guru, but from the private diary of a man who lived nearly 2,000 years ago. This man was Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth. Yet his personal journal, which we now know as Meditations, wasn't filled with pronouncements of his own glory. It was a collection of private reminders, exercises, and reflections on how to live a good life in the face of immense duty, constant war, betrayal, and personal loss. And within those pages, Holiday found the first cornerstone of this ancient philosophy. It was a simple but world-altering idea. It is not the things that happen to us that upset us, but our judgment, our perception of those things. The obstacle itself is rarely the real problem. The real problem is the story we tell ourselves about it. Our perception is the lens through which we view reality, and we have the power to change that lens. We can choose to see an event as a catastrophe, or we can choose to see it as an opportunity. This isn't about blind optimism or pretending a bad situation is good. It's about maintaining objectivity, stripping away the emotional baggage of unfair, terrible, or impossible, and seeing the thing for what it truly is, just a set of circumstances. Consider the story of John D. Rockefeller. In 1857, America was hit by one of the worst financial panics in its history. Banks failed, businesses collapsed, and fortunes were wiped out overnight. The prevailing perception was one of utter chaos and ruin. For most people, this was the end of the world. But a young, unknown bookkeeper in Cleveland named John D. Rockefeller saw it differently. While others were panicking, he was studying. He looked at the wreckage not with fear, but with a cold, detached curiosity. He saw the panic as a valuable lesson, a real-world education in how markets worked, how fear drove decisions, and how the over-leveraged were punished. He didn't have much money to invest, but he invested his attention. He learned, and when the economy eventually recovered, armed with the hard-won wisdom he gained during the crisis, he was perfectly positioned to build the empire that would become Standard Oil. The obstacle, the panic of 1857, was the same for everyone. But Rockefeller's perception of it, as an opportunity to learn rather than a reason to despair, made all the difference. This principle extends far beyond business. Think of the actor George Clooney in his early years. He spent years going to auditions and facing constant rejection. His initial perception was, "They don't want me. I'm not good enough." This mindset made him desperate, needy, and ultimately unsuccessful. The obstacle was rejection. Then, one day, he flipped the script. He changed his perception. He started thinking, these casting directors have a problem. They need to find the right person for this role, and their job is hard. I'm here to help them solve their problem. Suddenly, auditions were no longer a test where he was being judged. They were a collaboration. He walked into the room not as a beggar seeking approval, but as a professional offering a solution. That shift in perception changed everything about his energy, his confidence, and ultimately his career. He didn't become a better actor overnight. He changed the way he saw the obstacle of the audition room. This was the first profound truth Holiday uncovered. The power to reframe, to control our perceptions, is a kind of superpower. The initial feeling of being stuck is a narrative we create. The obstacle isn't the thing itself, but the label of bad we attach to it. By learning to see things with clarity and objectivity, we can take the first crucial step in turning a roadblock into a runway. But as Holiday dug deeper, both into his own experiences and into the annals of history, he realized that a change in perception, while essential, was not the whole story. It was a powerful first step, but it was also passive. You can see an opportunity with perfect clarity. You can maintain a stoic calm in the face of disaster. But if you do nothing, you are still at the mercy of your circumstances. You can stare at a locked door all day, perceiving it as a potential passageway. But unless you find a key or break it down, you're still locked out. This led to the discovery of the second, and perhaps more difficult, principle: action. Once you have managed your perception of an obstacle, you must act, not with frantic, panicked energy, but with deliberate, creative, and persistent effort. Action is the process of breaking the obstacle down into its smallest component parts and attacking each one with everything you've got. It's about pragmatism over perfectionism, iteration over grand gestures. The story of Amelia Earhart perfectly illustrates this. Her goal was to be the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. The obstacle was everything: the vast, unforgiving ocean, the notoriously unreliable aircraft of the 1930s, the treacherous weather, the sheer physical and mental exhaustion of a 15-hour flight. A purely perceptual shift wouldn't get her plane off the ground. She couldn't just reframe the Atlantic as a small pond. She had to act. Her approach was the essence of the second principle. She broke the impossible down into a series of manageable problems. Fuel capacity, how to fit more tanks in a tiny plane. Navigation, how to cross thousands of miles of open water with rudimentary instruments. Mechanical failure. What were the most likely points of failure, and how could she prepare for them? She obsessed over every detail, every wire, every gauge. Her action was not one single heroic leap. It was thousands of small, disciplined, and courageous steps. When she finally took off, and her altimeter failed, and fuel began to leak, she didn't panic. She fell back on her process, dealing with one problem at a time, relentlessly moving forward. The obstacle wasn't overcome by a change in mindset alone. It was dismantled, piece by piece, through methodical action. Or take the example of the ancient Greek orator Demosthenes. His obstacle was deeply personal. He was born with a debilitating speech impediment. He stuttered and was often short of breath. For someone aspiring to be a public speaker in a society that revered rhetoric, this was a death sentence. His perception could have easily been one of helpless despair. But he refused. He chose action. And his actions were legendary in their creativity and persistence. To strengthen his lungs, he would recite speeches while running up steep hills. To cure his stutter, he would practice speaking with a mouthful of pebbles, forcing his tongue and mouth to form words of extreme precision. To ensure his voice could command an audience, he would go to the seashore and practice projecting his speeches over the roar of the crashing waves. This was not a quick fix. It was a grueling, humbling, and relentless process. He chipped away at his obstacle day after day, not with one grand solution, but with a series of small, targeted, and highly practical actions. He physically remade himself into the greatest orator in Athens. This is a complication, and the deeper truth Holiday uncovered. Perception gives you clarity, but action gives you agency. It's the messy, unglamorous, and often difficult work of doing what needs to be done. It's about focusing on the process, not the outcome, and taking that first, small step, and then the next, and the one after that, until the mountain in front of you has been reduced to a pile of stones at your feet. So, you've mastered your perception. You see the obstacle clearly as an opportunity, and you've taken action. You've broken the problem down and attacked it with disciplined, persistent effort. But what happens then? What happens when you do everything right and you still fail? What happens when the obstacle is truly, completely, and unchangeably outside of your control? An incurable disease, the death of a loved one, a market collapse so total that no amount of clever action can save your business. This is the ultimate test, the point where the first two principles fall short. It's here that Holiday's investigation revealed the final and most profound piece of the puzzle. It is a unifying principle that holds the entire framework together. Will. Will is our internal power, the one thing that can never be taken from us. It is a quiet fortitude to accept what we cannot change, to endure what we must, and understand that even in the face of apparent defeat, we still have the freedom to choose our response. It is the strength of our inner citadel, a fortress that no external event can breach. There is no more powerful illustration of this than the story of Thomas Edison. In 1914, an explosion ripped through a sprawling research and production campus in New Jersey. The fire that followed was catastrophic. It raged for hours, fueled by the volatile chemicals in the labs. Fire departments from 8 nearby towns were helpless to stop it. As Edison stood and watched his life's work, decades of research, priceless prototypes, and irreplaceable records burned to the ground. What was his reaction? His perception was clear. Everything was gone. His previous actions, the years of building and inventing, were now reduced to ash. But his will, his inner response, was something truly extraordinary. He calmly turned to his 24-year-old son, Charles, and said, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." When Charles, understandably stunned, protested, Edison simply replied, "It's all right. We've just got rid of a lot of rubbish." This wasn't denial or delusion. This was an act of supreme will. He was accepting the reality of a situation completely, but refusing to be broken by it. He was choosing to see not just a loss, but the strange, terrible beauty of the spectacle. He was choosing to see it not as an end, but as a cleansing. The very next morning, with the ruins still smoldering, Edison, at 67 years old, gathered his employees and announced, "We will begin rebuilding tomorrow." And they did. This grand synthesis is a true aha moment of philosophy. Perception, action, and will are not three separate ideas, but three interconnected stages of a single, fluid process. Perception gives you the clarity to see the path. Action is how you walk the path, and will is what keeps you on the path, especially when you stumble, fall, or the path itself crumbles beneath your feet. It's the understanding that even when we lose everything else, we still retain the power to choose our attitude, to find meaning in our suffering, and to endure with grace and resilience. The obstacle, in Edison's case, a devastating fire, truly became the way. It was a disaster that forced a complete rebuild, allowing him to design a more efficient and modern facility. The catastrophe became a catalyst. This is a complete formula for turning every challenge into a source of strength. It is a timeless alchemy that transforms lead into gold, pain into purpose, and obstacles into opportunities. Our journey through this ancient philosophy has taken us from the universal, frustrating feeling of being stuck to the high-pressure corporate battlefields where Ryan Holiday first sought a better way, and to the lives of emperors, industrialists, aviators, and inventors. We've seen how this isn't just a collection of clever ideas, but a living, breathing operating system for human flourishing. And it all boils down to a simple, yet profoundly powerful, three-part blueprint. First, we must learn to master our perceptions, to see things for what they are, not what our fear or anger tells us they are, to strip away the subjective and find the objective opportunity hidden within every challenge. Second, we must commit to directed action, not aimless, panic movement, but a disciplined, creative, and persistent process of breaking our obstacles down and moving forward one step at a time. And finally, we must cultivate an unconquerable will, the inner strength to accept the things we cannot change, to endure hardship with fortitude, and to understand that our ultimate power lies not in controlling events, but in controlling our response to them. Perception, action, will. This is the framework. This is the tool set. But understanding it is only the first step. The real transformation happens not when you know the path, but when you walk it. The obstacles in your life, the ones you're facing right now and the ones that are yet to come, are not going away. They are an inescapable part of the human experience. The real question is not whether you will face them, but how you will meet them. Will you see them as reasons to quit or as opportunities to grow? Will you be broken by them, or will you be forged by them? By choosing to engage with ideas like this, you are choosing the latter. You are choosing to become an alchemist of your own life. If this journey resonated with you, if you feel a call to arm yourself with this kind of resilience, then I invite you to subscribe and join a community of people who are committed to this practice. It's more than just a click. It's a declaration. It's a commitment to yourself that you will no longer be a passive victim of circumstance, but an active architect of your own character. Because the great secret, the one that has been passed down through the ages, is that the thing in your way is not blocking the path. The thing in your way is the path.